we're really working at the system level to help library staff and extension staff recognize the natural connection. On top of that, though, is to get the resources that are vetted by Extension, that are created and vetted by Extension, into the hands of the people who most need them. And that's where the library is such a tremendous asset for communities, is that oftentimes the library is the place where people who are very vulnerable still feel very comfortable going. They have a very long history of reaching vulnerable populations.
An assistant professor in the Kansas State University School of Family Studies and Human Services is working to develop a collaborative program between K-State Research and Extension and Kansas Public Libraries to provide activity-based learning at the local level. On today's Sound Living, making Extension's research-based information easier to access. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles says Extension wants to connect people with a variety of research-based information, and the public library is a great place to start.
It's such a natural partnership, particularly in child development, with the work that I do and in the domains of parenting and emergent literacy and healthy activities. It's such a tremendously natural partnership. And so my colleague, Lisa Newman, who used to be an extension agent, is actually in charge of the youth services at the Salina Public Library. And we've been working together to identify programming that she and I can do together. And then as a process of that, we've started to really catalog and recognize all the different domains across the state that are already doing this very cool interdisciplinary work. Because when you think about child development, you don't automatically think about libraries. When you think about nutrition, you don't automatically think about libraries. But so much of the work that we do in communities has to do with the library as this community hub, as this place where it's attractive to all different varieties of families. Everybody knows where the library is in their community. Again, that natural partnership with Extension and the public library system that we're really trying to help both our agents and the library faculty across the state recognize the potential for collaboration.
What kind of things are you looking at in terms of what can be done to, I guess, foster some ideas and move this project forward?
The thing that I think is most important is for families to know that when they walk into the library, it doesn't always have to be about what they see right in front of them there, right? That, yeah, I love books. My entire dissertation is based on emergent literacy and young children. It's what I love. It's something that is near and dear to me. And yet, so much of what the library is about is really information gathering and dissemination, right? I mean, we as adults, we read to learn things, right? And so what the library has started to really shift towards as well is to be that hub for activity-based learning, right? So sessions on everything from adult development and aging. So how to recognize Alzheimer's, how to better age in place, all the way to family resource management, how to identify good health insurance plans, how to make decisions about time, talent, and money. And then, of course, into youth development. So a lot of library systems have opportunities for youth to mentor younger children in their emergent literacy. And then, of course, there's, in my domain, the parenting elements that the library provides such a tremendous opportunity for helping parents navigate that really difficult exercise of parenting. I'm here to tell you, it is a very difficult thing day in and day out. And the library and Extension can really help us navigate those worlds. They have programming that has been generated from their own system, but they really are open to working with Extension. And so I think the biggest thing is for families to recognize that when they walk through the doors, it doesn't have to all be about books.
Is this about getting resources into the library, Extension resources, or is this about connecting more on a one-on-one or kind of a one-on-group atmosphere?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right? So I think that the first is definitely working at the system level of getting our two systems to mesh and interface well with one another. So that's what Lisa and I are really working on. If you think about sort of a policies or a systems framework, we're really working at the system level to help library staff and extension staff recognize the natural connection. On top of that, though, is to get the resources that are vetted by Extension, that are created and vetted by Extension, into the hands of the people who most need them. And that's where the library is such a tremendous asset for communities, is that oftentimes the library is the place where people who are very vulnerable still feel very comfortable going. They have a very long history of reaching vulnerable populations, right? I mean, one of the main missions of the public library system is to help people learn to read. And so what that provides for us is an entree to get all of the really important materials we have regarding nutrition, parenting, especially from my personal perspective, but all the things, all the tools that families need, and in an activity and informational type of format that is useful for families. And of course, for families with young children, one of the great things is that many, if not all, of the libraries across the state have areas for children that are specifically for children so that they can learn and the adults can also learn at the same time. And then there's always the socialization component that goes along with that. So for families that might homeschool their kids, or particularly for kids that are too young to be in school, the library is such a great place to go to have that social interaction. And not just for the kids. I mean, the parents need that interaction too. When you're the parent of a 2-year-old, it's a lonely existence if you don't have a social network around you. The library can be a great place to not only meet other people who also have younger kids, but to learn about the positive strategies that we have that we know build resilience. And that's really what Extension is all about, is building resilience, building health in the families in Kansas. It's a perfect opportunity.
We hear a lot about the summer reading programs through libraries, but as I understand it, these programs are going on year-round, and therefore is another good connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, a lot of times those programs are supplemented by Extension and vice versa, right? There's this great partnership. And yeah, the summer programs are there because there's a need, right? Because in the United States, we don't have year-round elementary school or kindergarten, but we have bridged essentially that summer gap by creating these programs that go on in libraries that are geared towards essentially preventing that summer slide and skill building. The library system has the 6 skills that they want, the 6x6 skills: having fun with books, noticing print all around you, talking. It doesn't matter what age children are. They need to hear us talking to them. It's how our brains begin to understand language and how we wire our brains for not only understanding language, but producing it. And so we need to continue to talk. And then you want to look for letters everywhere. You want to tell stories about everything. And that's one of the great things about the library, is that their whole world is about telling stories. And then finally, taking time to rhyme. It's all part of how we process language and how we come to then be able to be creative. All of these things are about creativity, right? It's all about being innovative and creative. And so what we want to do is point the way for our Extension faculty and library staff to work together and help families recognize the vast opportunities that they have in going to the library and interfacing with the Extension programming and the library's programming.
One of the things I'm sensing here is that this can actually be a family outing. This can be something that is done as a family. It's not just for the kids. It's not just for the adults. It's hopefully bringing them all together.
I could not have said it better. Excellent. Yes. It can be a family event. I mean, you can go and do things that everybody gets something out of. And how rare is that in today's world? I mean, usually if you have to go grocery shopping, well, fine. The adult gets the groceries that he or she needs, but I can tell you the kids aren't terribly thrilled about going to the grocery store, right? But, the thing about the library, and particularly with our Extension programming laid on top of that, is that the kids can have a good time and the parents can come away with something that's really valuable for them. And it doesn't have to be a one-off, right? The thing about the library is that it can be this ongoing program to where we can really get to more than just a knowledge gain, where we can get to actual skill building and behavior change. And that's what we really want to try to accomplish, right? It's one thing to know things. For a long time, our science was based on essentially knowledge gain or intent. And then we came to realize that that's not good enough. Everybody walking around now knows that smoking is bad for you, and yet some people still smoke. And so what we really want to get to are skill building and then finally behavior change, right? So, there are smoking cessation programs that are out of the Department of Public Health, and that's not the things that we do. But we do focus on emergent literacy skills. And so how do we make reading more fun and engaging for the adults and the children? Because that truly is its own reward. I mean, it is. It's more fun. And so then you want to do it more. And when you do that more, your kids like it more. And so it's this circular element that is good for everybody. When your kids like reading, guess what? They then learn to read, and then they read to learn. And so it's just this tremendous opportunity that we have.
And this is something that can be tailored for each individual community because they all have areas that they want to focus on and certain problems that may be unique to their community.
Yes, that's exactly right. The benefit of the extension system is because it is driven by local input and local control, is that it can be nimble and it can respond to those community level needs. And so in some communities, there are going to be Spanish-speaking librarians and Spanish-speaking extension professionals who can interface with audiences whose primary language is Spanish. And make no mistake, many of the families that I'm talking about are bilingual, but it's always easier to talk to people in their native language. I, at one point, was fairly fluent in Spanish, but I'll just tell you, it was always more comfortable when someone talked to me in English.
What do you see down the road here? What's the next step in this process?
At the systems level, the next step is to really formalize those relationships at the state level between our extension staff and the library's outreach and engagement efforts. And that's really on me and my colleagues here to really solidify that. And then beyond that is to really seek the external funding to implement a cohesive strategy of scheduling and resource delivery, direct education, while using that direct education to inform the system change. Direct education is crucial, and it will be crucial for us, I would hope, for another 100 years. And as part of that, we need to use that direct education as a mechanism for informing how our systems work. And so that's the next step. The next step is to build in this system-level change as we provide direct ed. Some of this work is already being done. A lot of our communities have good, solid partnerships with their library system. Some of them have done one-off programs with libraries. Some of them have an ongoing relationship, but it's not terribly formal. And so I think from my perspective, the next step is to really try to formalize those things. And if we can work with funders to provide the means and mechanisms for really formalizing those so that we can make a difference in the lives of Kansans, that would be the next step for me. I see this as a model for really building the relationships so that extension becomes who you think of for knowledge and skill building, and where you do that is in the context of your library because of all the great things that they have. And we know that not all communities have libraries, so I want to make sure that I'm not disadvantaging those communities who don't. But there are ways that we can have satellite types of libraries that are supportive, and that's part of that funding element is how do we expand the reach of extension through the library system. That's really the goal is how do we expand our visibility and our reach and further the goals of the library at the same time.
That's Bradford Wiles, a child development specialist with K-State Research and Extension. More information on extension programming is available at county and district extension offices and on the extension website, www.ksre.ksu.edu. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.